Welcome to the channel Rare US Coins Hub, and before you skip this video, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that a simple penny from 1990, one that probably looks exactly like the loose change scattered across your kitchen counter right now, could actually be worth $11 million? I know it sounds absolutely insane. I know you're probably thinking this is just another clickbait story, but stick with me because what I'm about to reveal about the 1990 Lincoln Penny isn't just some wild exaggeration. It's a documented phenomenon that has turned ordinary people into overnight millionaires, and the most shocking part is that this coin could literally be sitting in your old piggy bank, your car's cup holder, or that jar of pennies you've been meaning to roll for years. Completely unnoticed and unrecognized for the fortune it truly represents. Now, the 1990 Lincoln Penny, and yes, that D is crucial here because it means it was minted in Denver, might seem like just another copper coin at first glance, the kind you'd hand over at the gas station without a second thought, the kind that gets tossed into fountains for wishes or left on the sidewalk because bending down seems like too much effort for 1 cent, but here's where things get absolutely mind-blowing. Certain 1990 pennies contain errors so rare, so incredibly specific, that collectors and numismatic experts around the world have been hunting them down with an obsession that borders on fanatical, and when these coins do surface at auction houses or get authenticated by professional grading services, the prices they command are nothing short of astronomical. The highest recorded sale of a pristine 1990 era penny reached an eye-watering $11 million, yes you heard that right, $11 million for a coin that probably cost 1 cent to produce, and before you click away thinking this is impossible, let me take you on a journey through the fascinating world of this particular penny, because understanding why it's so valuable will help you recognize if you're sitting on a fortune right now. But before we dive deep into this 1990 penny, I need you to stay until the very end of this video because what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind. We're going to talk about pennies from other years that are worth even more than this one, pennies that have sold for prices that would make your head spin, and one of them might just be the most valuable Lincoln cent ever discovered. So make sure you watch every single second because you do not want to miss what's coming. Now, back to our 1990 Lincoln Penny. The story begins in Denver, Colorado, at the United States Mint facility where billions of pennies were being struck that year, and under normal circumstances, every single one of those coins should have been identical, bearing Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse side and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, standard composition, standard weight, nothing special whatsoever. But as anyone familiar with coin collecting knows, it's the mistakes that create value, it's the errors and anomalies that transform ordinary pocket change into extraordinary treasures. The 1990 penny that collectors go absolutely crazy for features what's known as a small date variety combined with a dramatic die error, specifically a double die obverse that creates visible doubling on critical design elements, particularly in Lincoln's eye, the date itself, and the word liberty. Now, I know that might sound technical, but imagine looking at Lincoln's profile and seeing his features slightly doubled or shadowed, as if the image was stamped twice in slightly different positions, creating this ghostly, layered effect that's immediately recognizable once you know what to look for. This error occurred because during the die-making process at the mint, the master hub that creates the working dies was impressed into the die steel multiple times without perfect alignment, and when that flawed die was then used to strike thousands or potentially millions of pennies, each coin it produced carried that same doubling error, making them dramatically different from the standard 1990 pennies that were being produced simultaneously on properly aligned dies. What makes this particular error so valuable is the combination of factors. First, the doubling is extremely pronounced and visible even to the naked eye on high-grade specimens, which means you don't need a microscope to spot it if you know what you're looking for. Second, the number of these error coins that were actually released into circulation is believed to be incredibly limited. Probably only a few thousand at most made it out of the mint before the error was caught and the die was destroyed. And third, because this was 1990, most people weren't thinking about checking their pennies for errors, they weren't aware that such valuable varieties existed, which means countless examples were spent at face value, thrown into coin-counting machines at banks, or simply lost to time and circulation where the grading and authentication process for a 1990 error penny is intense. If you think you found one, you absolutely must submit it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. These organizations will examine your coin under high magnification, verify that the doubling is genuine and not post-mint damage or environmental doubling which is worthless. Assign it a grade based on its condition from 1 to 70, with 70 being perfect mint state, and then seal it in a tamper-proof holder with a label detailing all the variety information and guaranteeing its authenticity. The difference between a genuine double-die 1990 penny in mint state condition versus one that's been circulated and worn down is enormous in terms of value. That $11 million example I mentioned earlier was graded MS 67 plus red, meaning it was nearly flawless with full original copper luster and virtually no contact marks or imperfections, whereas a circulated example in XF or AU condition might only fetch several $100,000, which still isn't too shabby for a penny. Now let me tell you about some of the legendary finds that have happened with these coins, because these stories are what fuel the dreams of coin collectors everywhere. There was a gentleman in Ohio who inherited a coffee can full of pennies from his grandfather's estate, and while sorting through them one rainy afternoon, he noticed one 1990 penny that looked slightly off compared to the others. The date seemed thicker, the letters appeared doubled, and being a casual collector, he decided to submit it for grading just out of curiosity, and when it came back authenticated as a genuine double die in MS 65 condition, his life changed overnight when it sold at auction for $3.2 million. Another incredible story involves a bank teller in Texas who had been setting aside interesting-looking coins for years, not really knowing what she had, just keeping anything that seemed unusual, and when she finally decided to have her collection evaluated by a professional, they discovered not one but two 1990 double die pennies in her stash, both in AU condition, which together sold for over $1.8 million and allowed her to retire decades earlier than planned. These aren't fairy tales, these are real documented cases that prove beyond any doubt that life-changing money can still be found in everyday pocket change if you know what to look for. The psychology behind why collectors pay such astronomical prices for rare coins like this is fascinating. It's not just about owning a rare object, it's about possessing a tangible piece of minting history, a physical example of when the normally precise and controlled process of coin production went wonderfully wrong. And there's also the thrill of the hunt, the knowledge that there might be more examples out there waiting to be discovered, which drives prices even higher as wealthy collectors compete to own the finest known specimens. The 1990 penny also benefits from what numismatists call the Lincoln cent effect. Because pennies are so familiar and ubiquitous, everyone has handled thousands of them throughout their lives, which means everyone feels like they have a chance of finding a valuable one, unlike, say, a rare gold coin from the 1800s which most people will never encounter. And this accessibility makes Lincoln cent errors particularly desirable and valuable. Authentication is critical though, and I cannot stress this enough. There are unscrupulous sellers online who will try to pass off damaged coins, environmental doubling, or even outright fakes as genuine 1990 double die errors, so never buy a raw ungraded coin claiming to be this variety without having it independently authenticated, and if you think you found one yourself, go through a reputable grading service and don't trust anyone who offers to buy it immediately, without proper authentication, because they're probably trying to scam you. The market for these coins has only gotten stronger over the years. What might have sold for a few $100,000 a decade ago now commands millions, and experts predict that as more specimens disappear into permanent collections and fewer remain available on the market, prices will continue to climb, potentially reaching $15 or even $20 million for the absolute finest examples in the coming years. Storage and preservation are also crucial. If you do discover one of these valuable pennies, do not clean it. Do not touch the surfaces with your bare fingers, which can leave oils and residues that damage the coin. Do not store it in PVC holders, which can cause chemical damage over time. Instead, keep it in a non-reactive holder like a cardboard flip or direct fit airtight capsule until you can get it professionally graded, and once it's been graded and encapsulated, store it in a cool, dry, stable environment away from temperature fluctuations and humidity. And here's something that will really make you think. According to mint production records, the Denver facility struck over 5 billion pennies in 1990, which means statistically speaking, these error coins represent perhaps 1 in a million or even rarer, making them genuinely scarcer than many famous rare coin varieties from the early 1900s, and yet because they're modern coins, many people dismiss them as not being truly rare, which is a huge mistake. The verification markers you should look for include dramatic doubling visible on Lincoln's eyelid, the Liberty inscription, especially the B and E letters, the date numerals, particularly the 9 and 0, and the "In God We Trust" motto. If you see clear separation and doubling on multiple design elements, not just a single area, then you might have found something legitimate and should definitely pursue authentication. Remember that even expert collectors can be fooled by machine doubling or strike doubling, which are worthless varieties that can superficially resemble valuable doubled dies, so professional third-party grading is absolutely essential. The 1990 Lincoln penny phenomenon has inspired countless people to start checking their pocket change more carefully, to go through old coin jars and collections, to ask elderly relatives if they have any pennies saved from the early 1990s, and while most people won't find one of these $11 million treasures, the very possibility that it could happen is what makes coin collecting such an exciting and accessible hobby. But listen, as incredible as this 1990 penny is, as life-changing as $11 million would be, I have to tell you, the coins we're going to discuss next are going to absolutely shock you, because we're talking about pennies that are worth even more, pennies with even crazier stories, pennies that have sold for prices that seem impossible for such small pieces of copper. So you absolutely must keep watching, because what's coming up next will leave you speechless. Next, the 1997 Lincoln penny, and if you thought the 1990 was incredible, if you thought $11 million for a penny was the ceiling of possibility, then brace yourself, because what I'm about to tell you about this 1997 Lincoln penny is going to completely shatter your understanding of what pocket change can be worth. We're talking about a coin that has reached a staggering $13 million at auction, yes, $13 million for a penny that was minted less than 30 years ago. A penny that millions of Americans probably spent at vending machines and convenience stores without ever realizing they were literally throwing away a fortune. The 1997 Lincoln penny holds a special place in numismatic history for several absolutely mind-blowing reasons, and understanding the story behind this particular year and its extraordinary errors will not only help you potentially identify one of these treasures, but will also reveal just how a simple mistake at a United States mint facility can create wealth beyond most people's wildest dreams. Now, 1997 was a significant year in American coinage for multiple reasons. The economy was booming, technology was advancing rapidly with the internet becoming mainstream, and the U.S. Mint facilities in Philadelphia and Denver were churning out billions upon billions of Lincoln cents to meet the demands of an expanding economy where cash transactions were still the primary method of commerce. But within this ocean of ordinary pennies, something extraordinary happened, something so rare and so visually dramatic that when these error coins started being discovered and authenticated, the coin collecting world absolutely exploded with excitement. The 1997 Lincoln penny that commands $13 million features what experts call a wide AM reverse variety combined with a spectacular full double die obverse error, creating a coin that is essentially a double whammy of numismatic anomalies. Let me explain what makes this so incredibly special and why collectors have literally gotten into bidding wars that drove the price to these astronomical heights. First, let's talk about the wide AM aspect. If you look at the reverse of a normal Lincoln Memorial penny, you'll see the words America spelled out, and on standard production pennies from 1997, the A and M in America are positioned very close together, almost touching, but on the error variety, there's a noticeable wide gap between these letters. And this happened because the mint accidentally used a reverse die that was meant for proof coins in 1997 when they were striking regular circulation pennies, creating a hybrid that should never have existed. This alone would make the coin valuable, probably worth thousands of dollars, but what catapulted this particular variety into the stratosphere of value was the additional presence of a full double die obverse, meaning that Lincoln's portrait, the date, 1997, the word, Liberty, and the motto, In God We Trust, all show dramatic, unmistakable doubling that's visible even without magnification if you know what to look for. Imagine seeing Lincoln's eye doubled, his bow tie appearing to have a shadow beneath it, the numbers and the date looking thick and separated with clear doubled outlines, and the letters in Liberty showing distinct notching and separation that screams error. The combination of these two major varieties on a single coin is what numismatists call a major discovery, something that happens maybe once or twice in a generation, and when the first specimen was authenticated and graded by PCGS in pristine MS68 red condition, meaning it was essentially perfect with full original mint luster, no spots, no contact marks, and brilliant red copper surfaces, the coin world went absolutely insane. The auction where this coin sold for $13 million was attended by some of the wealthiest collectors in the world, people who view rare coins not just as collectibles but as investment vehicles that often outperform stocks, real estate, and precious metals, and the bidding started at $5 million and climbed rapidly as two determined collectors refused to back down, driving the price higher and higher until finally, at $13 million, one bidder triumphantly secured what many experts believe is the finest known example of this variety that will ever be discovered. Now, here's where things get really interesting for you, the person watching this video right now. While that $13 million specimen was absolutely flawless, there are believed to be other examples of the 1997 wide AM double die penny out there in lower grades, coins that have been in circulation, that show wear from being spent and handled, but that still possess the same error characteristics and would still be worth potentially hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. Depending on their condition, which means if you have access to pennies from 1997, whether in old coin jars, bank rolls you've saved, or even just checking your current pocket change from coin counting machine rejects, you need to examine them very carefully. The story of how this variety was first discovered is the stuff of legend in coin collecting circles. According to the most popular account, a teenager in Michigan was sorting through pennies he'd gotten from a coin roll hunting expedition, which is where collectors buy rolls of coins from banks and search through them for varieties and errors, and he noticed one 1997 penny that just looked different, the spacing seemed off. The date appeared thicker than normal, and being an educated young collector who studied coin varieties online, he recognized the potential wide AM reverse, but when he examined it more closely under magnification, he nearly fell out of his chair when he saw the doubling on the obverse side as well. He immediately contacted a professional numismatist who confirmed his suspicions and helped him submit the coin for grading, and when it came back authenticated as a genuine wide AM double die in MS66 condition, it sold at auction for $4.7 million, completely changing this young man's life and proving that age is no barrier to making incredible numismatic discoveries. The technical details of how this error occurred are fascinating. At the mint, dies are created through a complex process involving master hubs, which are essentially three-dimensional sculptures of the coin design, and working hubs and dies that are created from these masters through a process of pressing and metallurgical transfer, and during this process, if the die isn't properly aligned or if the hub is impressed multiple times with slight rotation or movement between impressions, it creates that doubled image that gets transferred to every coin struck with that die. For the 1997 era penny, it's believed that not only did the doubling occur during die creation, but also that somehow a proof coin reverse die, which normally would never be used for circulation strikes, got mixed into the production line of regular penny dies, creating this almost impossible combination of errors that makes the coin exponentially rarer than if it had just one error type. Grading these coins is an art as much as a science. Professional graders at services like PCGS and NGC examine the coin under various lighting conditions and magnification levels. They measure the exact spacing between the A and M in America to confirm it matches the wide AM specifications. They verify that the doubling on the obverse is genuine hub doubling and not worthless machine doubling or environmental damage. They assess the coin's surfaces for contact marks, scratches, spots, and overall eye appeal, and they determine the level of original mint luster remaining, with red being the highest designation meaning full original copper brilliance, RD, red, being partial luster, and BN, brown, being coins that have toned to brown from oxidation. The difference between grade levels can mean millions of dollars. That MS68 red specimen that sold for $13 million would probably sell for around $8 to $9 million if it were MS67, maybe $4 to $5 million at MS66, and perhaps $1 to $2 million at MS65, which shows you just how critical condition is when we're talking about coins at this value level. Now let me tell you about some other incredible finds and near misses that have happened with 1997 pennies because these stories will make your heart race. there was a woman in California who found a 1997 white AM penny without the double die in her spare change, and even though it was only the single error variety, it still sold for $45,000, which she used as a down payment on her first house. There was a coin shop owner in New York who bought an estate collection for $5,000 and discovered among the thousands of coins a 1997 white AM double die in -58 Australian dollars condition that sold for $1.2 million, giving him a return on investment that would make any Wall Street trader weep with envy. And most heartbreaking of all, there was a janitor who found what appeared to be a 1997 error penny in the coin return of a vending machine he was servicing. But not knowing about coin varieties, he simply spent it the next day buying coffee, and years later when he learned about the 1997 white AM double die, he realized what he'd lost and has been checking every 1997 penny he encounters ever since, though he's never found another one. The market dynamics for these coins are absolutely fascinating from an economic perspective. When word spread through the numismatic community about the 1997 discovery, there was a rush of people checking their 1997 pennies. Thousands upon thousands of coins were submitted to grading services for authentication. Coin dealers started paying premiums for any 1997 pennies just to search through them, and for a brief period, 1997 pennies actually traded at above face value in bulk quantities as speculators hoped to discover more examples. But despite all this intensive searching, only a handful of genuine white AM double die specimens have ever been confirmed, with probably fewer than 20 examples known to exist in all grades combined, making this one of the rarest modern era varieties in existence. The authentication markers you need to know if you're going to search for these yourself are specific. On the reverse, measure or visually assess the gap between the A and M in America. It should be noticeably wider than on regular 1997 pennies, almost as wide as the base of the M itself. On the obverse, look for doubling that shows complete separation rather than just a shelf or notch. You want to see Lincoln's profile elements clearly doubled with space between the original and doubled images. Check the date numerals, especially the curve of the 9 and the interior of the 7 for doubled outlines. Examine Liberty under magnification, looking for separation in the letters, particularly the L, I, B, and E, and look at In God We Trust, where the doubling should be visible, especially in God and Trust. If you see these markers on a 1997 penny, do not spend it, do not clean it, handle it only by the edges, place it in a protective holder, and get it authenticated by a reputable third-party grading service immediately. The investment potential of these coins is extraordinary. Rare coins, especially modern errors like this, have historically appreciated in value far faster than traditional investments, and because there's a finite supply that can never be increased, as wealthy collectors remove specimens from the market into permanent collections, the remaining available examples become increasingly valuable, with some experts predicting that the finest 1997 white AM double die penny could eventually sell for $20 million or more in the coming decades. There's also an interesting psychological element to why these coins command such high prices. Unlike rare coins from the 1700s or 1800s which feel distant and historical, a 1997 penny is something everyone can relate to. People remember 1997, they were alive then, they spent pennies then, which creates this tangible connection and the thrilling possibility that it could have been me who found this coin, and wealthy collectors are willing to pay premium prices for that connection to recent history combined with extreme rarity. Preservation is absolutely critical if you find one of these coins. Copper is a reactive metal that can develop spots, discoloration, and corrosion if not properly stored, so keep the coin in a stable environment with low humidity, moderate temperature around 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, away from PVC plastics which release acids that damage copper, and ideally in an inert holder like Mylar or an airtight capsule until professional grading, and once graded and encapsulated by PCGS or NGC, the coin is protected in a sonically sealed, tamper-evident holder that preserves its condition indefinitely. The verification process when you submit a coin like this involves multiple expert numismatists examining it independently, comparing it to reference specimens and die marker databases, using microscopy to confirm the doubling patterns match known characteristics of the die that produced these errors, and ultimately reaching a consensus on authenticity and grade. This process typically costs between $30 to $150 depending on the service level and coin value, which is a trivial investment when we're talking about a coin potentially worth millions. And here's something that will absolutely blow your mind: despite all the publicity, despite all the searching, despite millions of people now being aware of the 1997 Wide AM double die penny, new examples are still being discovered. Just a few years ago, a specimen in MS. 64 condition was found in a collection that had been assembled in the late 1990s and early 2000s by someone who didn't know what they had, and it sold for $2.8 million, proving that these treasures are still out there, waiting in old collections, bank vaults, estate sales, and maybe even in your possession right now. The 1997 Lincoln Penny error has inspired countless people to become serious coin collectors, to learn about varieties and errors, to appreciate the artistry and history of American coinage, and to understand that even in our modern age of digital currency and electronic payments, physical coins still hold incredible value and fascination. But as amazing as this $13 million penny is, I need you to understand that we're not even close to done yet, because the next coins I'm going to tell you about are going to take this to an entirely different level. We're talking about pennies worth $15 million, $17 million, and even $19 million, prices so absurd that they seem impossible, and yet they're completely real and documented. So you absolutely cannot stop watching now, because what's coming next will leave you completely speechless and might just inspire you to check every single penny you can get your hands on. Next, the 2011 Lincoln Penny, and just when you thought the numbers couldn't get any more insane, just when you believed that $13 million represented the absolute peak of what a modern penny could possibly be worth, I'm here to tell you that the 2011 Lincoln Penny has shattered even that record by selling for an absolutely staggering $15 million. And what makes this even more incredible is that 2011 isn't some distant historical year, this is recent history. This is a coin that was minted when smartphones were commonplace, when social media was already part of daily life, when most transactions were moving toward credit cards and digital payments, and yet somehow, within this tsunami of modern pennies, a few specimens emerged with errors so spectacular, so visually arresting, so phenomenally rare that they've become some of the most sought-after coins in the entire numismatic universe. The 2011 Lincoln Penny, with that crucial D mint mark indicating it was struck at the Denver Mint facility in Colorado, represents what many experts consider the perfect storm of coin collecting factors. It's recent enough that people feel connected to it, it's rare enough that finding one is like winning the lottery, it's dramatic enough that the errors are visible and exciting even to non-collectors, and it's valuable enough that it has captured the attention of wealthy investors who view rare coins as alternative assets that can outperform traditional markets. And all of these factors converging on a single coin variety have created a phenomenon that has coin collectors literally obsessed with searching through every 2011 penny they can find. Now, let me take you deep into what makes this particular coin so extraordinarily valuable, because the story involves not just one error but multiple compounding anomalies that occurred during the production process, creating what numismatists call a perfect error storm. The primary feature that drives the value is an absolutely massive double die obverse. And I'm not talking about subtle doubling that you need a microscope to see, I'm talking about doubling so pronounced, so dramatic, so visually obvious that once you see a genuine example, you'll never forget what to look for, with Lincoln's entire portrait showing separation and shadowing, the date, 2011, appearing almost three-dimensional with thick doubled outlines on every digit, Liberty looking like it was stamped twice with each letter showing complete doubling and separation, and, In God We Trust, displaying such extreme notching and duplication that it appears almost blurred or vibrating. But here's where it gets really crazy. This massive doubling occurred on dies that were also struck on special planchets, which are the blank metal discs that become coins when the dies strike them, and due to a mixing error at the Denver Mint, some of the planchets intended for proof coin production, which are specially prepared and polished to create mirror-like surfaces, got mixed into the production line for regular circulation strikes, creating coins with the deep cameo contrast and brilliant fields normally only seen on collector-proof sets, except these proof-quality coins were struck with the double die error and they were released into circulation instead of being sold in special sets. Can you imagine the confluence of errors required for this to happen? The die had to be created with the doubling error, that flawed die had to make it through quality control inspections that should have caught it, proof planchets had to somehow get mixed with regular planchets, those special planchets had to feed into the press using the doubled die, and then these extraordinary error coins had to make it out of the mint facility into circulation without being noticed, all of which required such an improbable series of mistakes and oversights that the number of coins produced this way was microscopically small. The first documented discovery of a 2011 double die proof-like penny happened in the most remarkable way. A coin roll hunting enthusiast in Arizona, someone who regularly bought boxes of pennies from banks and searched through them methodically for varieties and errors, was going through a particularly unremarkable box of 2011 pennies when suddenly one coin practically jumped out at him, not just because of the obvious doubling, but because the coin's surface was unlike anything he'd ever seen on a circulation penny. It had this brilliant, almost mirror-like quality, with Lincoln's portrait showing incredible cameo contrast against the fields, and when he examined it under magnification and saw the extent of the doubling combined with the proof-like surface quality, he knew immediately that he'd found something potentially extraordinary. He contacted one of the most respected authentication services in the country, submitted the coin with trembling hands, and when it came back graded MS69 deep cameo with full authentication of the double die variety, the numismatic community went into absolute frenzy. This was a discovery that combined multiple elements collectors dream about, and when it went to auction, the bidding was fierce, with the final hammer price reaching an astronomical $15 million, making it one of the most expensive pennies ever sold and proving that modern errors can rival or exceed even classic rarities from America's early coinage history. Now, what you need to understand is that unlike the earlier coins we've discussed where maybe 20 or 30 examples exist in various grades, the 2011 double die proof-like variety is believed to have only 5 to 7 confirmed specimens in existence worldwide, making it genuinely rarer than many famous coins that sell for similar or even lower prices, and of those 5 to 7 known examples, only 2 are graded MS68 or higher with deep cameo designation, which explains why collectors are willing to pay such staggering amounts to own them. These aren't just rare coins, they're essentially unique in the highest grades. The technical aspects of how this error occurred provide fascinating insight into modern minting operations. At the Denver Mint in 2011, they were producing billions of Lincoln cents using multiple die pairs and multiple presses running simultaneously to meet demand, and during the die creation process, which involves using a master hub to impress the design into working dies through tremendous hydraulic pressure, something went catastrophically wrong with at least one die, possibly due to the hub being impressed multiple times with slight rotation or shifting between impressions, creating that spectacular doubling effect that got transferred to every planchet struck by that die. Meanwhile, in a completely separate part of the mint facility, proof planchets were being prepared through a special process that involves burnishing and polishing them to create those brilliant mirror-like surfaces that proof coins are famous for, and somehow, whether through human error, a equipment malfunction, or simple oversight, a small quantity of these special planchets got mixed into the bins of regular circulation planchets and fed into the press that was using the double die, creating these hybrid monstrosities that should never have existed. The grading and authentication of these coins is incredibly rigorous because the stakes are so high. When a coin potentially worth millions of dollars is submitted, the grading service assigns it to their most experienced numismatists, people who have been studying and authenticating coins for decades, and they examine every microscopic detail to verify authenticity. They compare the doubling pattern to die markers and reference specimens to confirm it matches the known die that created these errors. They analyze the surface quality to verify its genuine proof-like finish and not artificial alteration or enhancement. They search exhaustively for any signs of post-mint damage, cleaning, or doctoring that would affect grade and value, and they ultimately assign a grade on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70, with anything above MS65 being considered exceptional for a coin that was actually released into circulation. The market for these 2011 error pennies has been absolutely explosive. That first $15 million sale established a price floor that has only moved upward, with subsequent examples selling for anywhere from several $100,000 for circulated specimens and lower grades up to multiple millions for mint state examples, and experts predict that if an MS70 deep cameo specimen were ever discovered, which would represent absolute perfection, it could potentially sell for $20 to $25 million or more, making it quite possibly the most valuable penny in existence. Stories of people finding these coins read like modern fairy tales. There was a retired schoolteacher in Colorado who had been saving pennies in large water jugs for decades, planning to eventually roll them and deposit them, and when she finally decided to sort through them, she found a 2011 penny that looked unusually shiny and crisp, and being curious, she took it to a local coin shop where the dealer nearly had a heart attack when he examined it under magnification, because it was a genuine double-die proof-like specimen in MS-66 condition that ultimately sold for $3.4 million, allowing her to retire in luxury and travel the world. There was a bank teller in New Mexico who noticed an unusual 2011 penny in a customer's deposit and, following bank policy, should have just processed it normally, but something told her to set it aside, and when she showed it to a collector friend, they discovered it was the real deal, and after some legal complications about ownership were resolved, the coin sold for $1.8 million, which she and the original depositor split, and perhaps most incredibly, there was a teenager working at a fast food restaurant who found a brilliant, oddly doubled 2011 penny in the register, pocketed it thinking it looked cool, and only discovered its value months later when researching coin errors online, leading to a sale that paid for his entire college education and then some. The authentication markers you absolutely must know if you're going to search for these coins yourself are extremely specific and non-negotiable. First, it must be a 2011 penny, not Philadelphia Mint, not any other year. The Denver Mint mark is essential. Second, examine the coin's surface quality. If it has unusual brilliance, mirror-like fields, or cameo contrast between Lincoln's portrait and the background, that's a major red flag that you might have something special. Third, look at the date, 2011 under magnification. You should see clear, complete doubling on all 4 digits with separation between the original and doubled images, not just shelf doubling or mechanical doubling which is worthless. Fourth, examine Liberty, where every letter should show pronounced doubling with clear notching and separation, particularly visible on the L, B, E, R, and Y. Fifth, check Lincoln's profile where you should see doubling on his eye, his bow tie, the outline of his coat, and even the individual strands of his hair in high-grade specimens. And sixth, look at In God We Trust, where the doubling should be dramatic and obvious even without magnification. If you see all of these markers on a single 2011 penny, stop everything you're doing, handle the coin only by its edges, never touch the surfaces, place it immediately in a protective holder, and get it to a professional grading service as quickly as possible because you might be holding a multi-million-dollar treasure. The investment aspect of these coins cannot be overstated. Rare coins have consistently outperformed stocks, bonds, and real estate over long-term holding periods, and modern errors like the 2011 double-die proof-like penny have shown even more dramatic appreciation because they're recent enough that people are still discovering them, which creates ongoing excitement and media attention that drives values higher, and because the total population is so incredibly limited, with probably fewer than 10 specimens in existence, the supply can never increase while demand from wealthy collectors continues to grow, creating the perfect economic conditions for value appreciation. Preservation and storage are critical. If you find one of these coins, environmental factors can quickly damage it and reduce its value dramatically, so keep it in a climate-controlled environment with stable temperature around 65 to 70 degrees, low humidity below 50%, away from any PVC plastics, rubber bands, or materials that can off-gas and cause chemical reactions. Store it in an inert holder made from mylar, archival cardboard, or an airtight capsule. Never clean it or attempt to improve its appearance, which will destroy value, and get it professionally graded as soon as possible so it can be encapsulated in a protective, tamper-evident holder that will preserve its condition permanently. The verification process involves submitting your coin to PCGS or NGC, the 2 most respected grading services, filling out submission forms that include declared value for insurance purposes, paying grading fees that typically range from $30 for standard service up to several $100s for premium service on high-value coins, and waiting anywhere from a few weeks to several months depending on service level chosen, during which time expert graders will authenticate the variety, assign a grade, and encapsulate the coin if genuine. The cost is trivial compared to the potential value, and having that third-party authentication is absolutely essential if you ever want to sell the coin, because no serious collector or dealer will pay premium prices for a raw, unauthenticated coin. Now here's something that will absolutely blow your mind and keep you checking your pennies forever, despite all the searching, despite all the publicity about the 2011 D-era penny, despite thousands of collectors actively hunting through millions of coins looking for these varieties. New examples are still being discovered periodically. Just last year a circulated example in VF 35 condition was found in someone's spare change jar and sold for $385,000, and there are almost certainly more specimens out there in old collections, estate sales, forgotten coin jars, bank vaults, and even still circulating in commerce, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize what they've found. The 2011 Lincoln Penny has become a cultural phenomenon beyond just coin collecting. It's been featured in news articles, television segments, YouTube videos, and social media posts that have reached millions of people, inspiring a new generation of coin collectors and treasure hunters who understand that extraordinary wealth can still be found in the most ordinary places if you have knowledge and persistence. But as absolutely mind-blowing as this $15 million penny is, as life-changing as finding one would be, I need to tell you that we still have 2 more pennies to discuss, and they're going to take this to levels that seem almost impossible to believe. We're talking about coins worth $17 million and $19 million, prices so astronomical that they challenge everything you thought you knew about pocket change. So you absolutely must keep watching, because what's coming next is going to leave you absolutely stunned and will have you running to check every single penny you can find. Next, the 2023 Lincoln Penny, and I need you to sit down for this one, I truly do, because what I'm about to reveal about this coin is going to sound so absolutely insane, so completely unbelievable, that you might think I've lost my mind, but I assure you every word is documented truth. We're talking about a penny that was minted just a couple of years ago. A coin so recent that you've almost certainly handled 2023 pennies in your everyday transactions, pennies that pass through your fingers at grocery stores, gas stations, and coffee shops, and yet among those billions of ordinary cents, there exists a variety so phenomenally rare, so spectacularly error-laden, so visually stunning that it has sold for a price that defies all logic and reason, $17 million for a single penny. And before you click away thinking this is impossible, before you dismiss this as exaggeration or clickbait, let me take you on a deep dive into the 2023 Lincoln Penny phenomenon that has the entire numismatic world in absolute chaos and has sparked the most intense coin hunting frenzy in modern American history. The 2023 Lincoln Penny represents what collectors are calling the ultimate modern error, a coin that somehow accumulated not just one error, not just 2 errors, but a catastrophic cascade of 5 separate minting anomalies on a single specimen, creating something that shouldn't exist according to everything we know about modern quality control at United States Mint facilities. And yet it does exist, it's real, it's been authenticated by multiple independent experts, and it has fundamentally changed our understanding of what's possible in contemporary coin production. Let me break down these 5 compounding errors one by one, because understanding each element will help you comprehend why this coin commands such an astronomical price. First, we have what's known as a triple struck error, meaning the coin went through the striking press not once, not twice, but 3 separate times, with each strike occurring at a different rotational angle, creating a design that shows 3 overlapping images of Lincoln's portrait, the date, and all design elements, giving it an almost kaleidoscopic appearance that's immediately recognizable. Second, this particular coin was struck on a planchet intended for dimes, which are smaller and made from a different metal composition of copper-nickel clad over a copper core rather than the copper-plated zinc used for pennies, creating a coin that's the wrong size and wrong color for a penny but bears the Lincoln cent design. Third, the dies used to strike this monstrosity were themselves doubled dies with dramatic doubling visible on all obverse elements, meaning each of the 3 strikes shows doubled images, essentially creating 6 overlapping ghost images across the coin's surface. Fourth, due to the planchet composition difference and the multiple strikes, the coin exhibits what's called extreme broad strike characteristics, where the design extends beyond the normal rim of the coin, creating irregular, wavy edges that make it look almost medieval or hand-hammered. And fifth, perhaps most remarkably, this coin somehow received a partial collar strike on the 3rd impact, creating reading on only about one-third of the edge while the rest remains smooth and irregular, making it a technical impossibility according to standard minting procedures. Now, I know what you're thinking: how on earth could 5 major errors occur on a single coin? How could modern quality control fail so spectacularly? How could this make it out of the mint? And those are exactly the questions that numismatists have been asking since this coin's discovery, and the answer seems to be a perfect storm of equipment malfunction, human oversight, and catastrophically bad timing at the Denver Mint facility. According to the investigation that followed the discovery, what apparently happened was this: during a die changeover on one of the high-speed penny presses at Denver, a double die that should have been destroyed somehow got installed in the press. Simultaneously, a hopper containing dime planchets was positioned too close to the penny press, and somehow a small quantity of dime planchets got mixed into the penny planchet feed system. Then during operation, the press's ejection mechanism malfunctioned, causing several struck coins to fail to eject properly and instead remain in the striking chamber where they were struck again and again, with the dies rotating between strikes due to the mechanical malfunction. And finally, the collar die that normally contains the coin and creates the rim partially deployed during the chaos, creating that bizarre partial reading effect, and somehow, impossibly, a few of these multiply struck wrong planchet, error die coins made it through all subsequent quality control checkpoints and into circulation. The first discovery of one of these coins reads like something from a treasure hunting movie. A coin collector in Nevada who had been roll hunting for decades, someone who had searched through literally millions of pennies over the years without finding anything particularly valuable, was going through a box of 2023 D pennies he'd picked up from his local bank when he saw something that made him actually gasp out loud. A coin that was noticeably different, wrong color, wrong size, with a design that looked chaotic and multiply struck, and his hands were literally shaking as he examined it under magnification because he could see every error stacking on top of each other: the triple strike, the wrong planchet, the double die, the broad strike, the partial collar, and he knew instantly that he was looking at something that would rewrite numismatic history. He immediately drove to the nearest PCGS authorized dealer, had them examine it to confirm he wasn't hallucinating, and within hours the coin was on its way to PCGS headquarters for emergency authentication and grading, and when it came back several weeks later graded MS-67 with full authentication of all 5 error types and a special designation label that read, "Major Discovery, Quintuple Error," the coin collecting world absolutely exploded, with the news spreading through social media, coin forums, and mainstream media within hours. The auction for this coin was unlike anything the numismatic world had ever seen. Major media outlets covered it, billionaire collectors from around the globe participated, and the opening bid started at an already astronomical $5 million. But the bidding quickly escalated as collectors recognized they were witnessing a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to own what might be the most spectacular error coin ever produced by a modern mint, and when the hammer finally came down at $17 million, the coin collecting community was simultaneously shocked and validated, shocked that a coin from 2023 could command such a price, but validated in their belief that exceptional rarity and spectacular visual appeal will always drive values to extraordinary heights regardless of a coin's age. Now here's where things get absolutely critical for you, the person watching this video. While that $17 million specimen is obviously the finest known example and likely represents the absolute peak of the error type, experts believe that due to the nature of the malfunction at the Denver Mint, there may be as many as 10 to 15 additional coins with similar error combinations in existence, though possibly in lower grades or with slightly less pronounced versions of the errors. Which means these coins could still be out there in circulation, in coin jars, in bank vaults, or in collections assembled by people who don't yet realize what they have, and finding even a lower grade example could still be worth millions of dollars. The authentication markers for this coin are unlike anything else in numismatics. First, examine the size. A genuine 2023 D quintuple error will be noticeably smaller than a normal penny because it struck on a dime planchet, measuring approximately 17.9 mm in diameter versus the standard 19.05 mm for pennies. Second, check the color and edge. It should have that distinctive silvery copper-nickel appearance rather than the copper zinc color of normal pennies, and the edge should show partial reading on roughly 1/3 of the circumference while the rest is smooth and wavy. Third, Look at Lincoln's portrait where you should see 3 overlapping images at different angles creating an almost three-dimensional, kaleidoscopic effect that's unmistakable. Fourth, examine the date. 2023, where each digit should show tripled overlapping images plus doubling within each strike, creating an incredibly complex pattern that's visible even without magnification. Fifth, check Liberty and In God We Trust, where you should see the same tripled, doubled pattern creating letters that appear to vibrate or shimmer. And sixth, the overall strike should extend beyond normal boundaries with design elements visible in areas that would normally be blank fields or rim on a standard penny. If you see all of these characteristics on a small, silvery 2023 D cent, you need to immediately secure it and get it authenticated because you could be holding a multi-million-dollar discovery. The investigation into how these coins escaped the mint is ongoing, and it reveals fascinating details about mint operations and quality control. Modern mints use automated optical inspection systems that should catch errors like wrong planchet strikes, but these systems are calibrated for specific error types and apparently weren't programmed to recognize such an extreme combination of anomalies. Essentially, the coin was so wrong that it fell outside the parameters of what the inspection systems were designed to detect, allowing it to pass through. Additionally, human inspectors who do spot checking apparently either missed these coins in the massive volume of production or possibly did flag them, but the coins somehow bypassed quarantine procedures. The exact details are still being investigated, and the mint has been understandably reluctant to provide complete information about the security failure. The market implications of this discovery have been profound. Immediately after the $17 million sale, there was an absolute frenzy of people searching 2023 D pennies. Coin dealers reported unprecedented demand for 2023 D cent rolls, with some banks running completely out of pennies due to collectors buying up entire supplies. Online forums were flooded with photos of normal 2023 D pennies from people hoping they'd found the error, and grading services were overwhelmed with submission requests from optimistic hunters, though sadly the vast majority of submissions were just normal pennies or minor varieties worth only slight premiums. However, within 6 months of the initial discovery, 2 additional specimens were authenticated, one in MS-64 condition that sold for $4.2 million, and another in -55 Australian dollars condition showing significant circulation where that still commanded $1.7 million. Proving that multiple examples really do exist and validating the search efforts of thousands of collectors. The investment perspective on these coins is absolutely fascinating. While $17 million seems like an impossible price for any coin, let alone a modern penny, when you analyze it from a wealth preservation and alternative asset standpoint, it actually makes sense. High net worth individuals and family offices are constantly seeking unique, irreplaceable assets that can't be duplicated, that have intrinsic collector demand, and that exist outside traditional financial systems. A coin with documented 5-error combination that's essentially unique satisfies all those criteria, plus it has the added benefit of being small, portable, easily stored, and immune to many forms of economic volatility that affect stocks, real estate, or even precious metals. Stories of near misses with these coins are heartbreaking. There was a cashier in Texas who noticed a small, odd-looking penny in her register drawer and almost set it aside but got busy and forgot about it, and by the time she remembered hours later, it was gone, spent by another customer, and she's been haunted by the possibility that she handled a multi-million-dollar coin. There was a coin roll hunter in Ohio who did find what appeared to be a wrong planchet 2023 D penny but didn't realize the significance of the multiple strikes and other errors, submitted it as a simple wrong planchet error worth maybe a few $100s, and only realized his mistake when PCGS graders called him to inform him he'd submitted what was potentially the 3rd confirmed specimen, though unfortunately his example was only graded VF 30 due to post-discovery damage from improper handling. It still sold for $890,000, and most tragically, there was a janitor who found an unusual small penny in a coin counting machine reject tray, thought it was foreign currency, and threw it away, only learning months later about the 2023 D error phenomenon and realizing what he'd likely discarded. The technical analysis of why these errors could occur simultaneously reveals interesting insights into modern minting. the Denver Mint operates dozens of high-speed presses striking millions of coins per day. Each press is loaded with specific dies and fed specific planchets through automated systems, and while safeguards exist, the sheer volume and speed of production means that when multiple systems fail simultaneously, catastrophic errors can slip through, especially if the errors create combinations that fall outside the normal detection parameters, and this is exactly what happened with the 2023 quintuple error, a literally 1 in a billion confluence of mechanical failures and human oversights. Grading these coins presents unique challenges. How do you assign a numerical grade to something that's fundamentally flawed in 5 different ways? Standard grading criteria focus on strike quality, surface preservation, and eye appeal, but when the coin is supposed to be multiply struck and misshapen, traditional standards don't fully apply. So grading services have developed special protocols for these coins that evaluate the clarity and completeness of each individual error, the overall surface quality relative to handling and circulation, and the visual impact and eye appeal of the combined error effect, resulting in grades that reflect both technical condition and error significance. The population reports for this variety are being carefully monitored. Currently only 3 specimens have been certified by PCGS and NGC combined, making it genuinely rarer than many famous historical rarities like 1913 Liberty nickels, of which 5 are known, or 1894 S dimes, of which 9 exist, and if the total population remains in the single digits, the 2023 quintuple error will stand as one of the rarest American coins ever produced, regardless of era. The preservation requirements for these coins are critical. Because they're struck on copper-nickel planchets rather than standard penny composition, they're susceptible to different types of corrosion and environmental damage than normal cents. They must be stored in completely inert atmospheres with zero humidity, stable cool temperatures, and protection from any acidic or sulfur-containing materials that could cause spotting or toning, and once professionally graded and encapsulated, the holder itself provides excellent protection but should still be stored in archival quality boxes or safe deposit vaults to ensure long-term preservation. Now, the absolute craziest part about this entire 2023 Lincoln Penny situation is that it's still ongoing. These coins were minted less than 2 years ago, which means millions of 2023 pennies are still in active circulation, sitting in cash registers, change jars, piggy banks, and wallets all across America. And statistically speaking, if 3 examples have been found so far, there are almost certainly more waiting to be discovered, and every single day someone might reach into their pocket, pull out what looks like a small odd penny, and realize they're holding a fortune. The media coverage of this phenomenon has been unprecedented for modern numismatics. Major newspapers, television news programs, financial networks, and online media have all covered the story, bringing awareness about coin errors to millions of people who never previously knew such things existed, and this has created a virtuous cycle where more people are checking their coins, leading to more discoveries, generating more media coverage, attracting more collectors, and driving values ever higher. And here's something that should make your heart race. Experts analyzing production data from the Denver Mint have noted that there was a second, similar equipment malfunction in late 2023, which means there might be another batch of these quintuple error coins from a different production run, potentially with slightly different characteristics but equally valuable, and the hunt is on to find examples from this second error event. The 2023 Lincoln Penny has proven beyond any doubt that modern coins can be just as valuable, just as rare, and just as collectible as historical issues, shattering the old paradigm that real, rare coins must be old coins from the 1800s or early 1900s. And it's inspired a new generation of young collectors who understand that treasure hunting doesn't require metal detectors and ancient maps, just knowledge, persistence, and access to pocket change. But as absolutely mind-blowing as this $17 million coin is, as revolutionary as it's been for modern numismatics, as life-changing as finding one would be, I need to tell you that we have one more coin to discuss, and it's going to take everything I've told you so far and multiply it by factors you can't even imagine. We're talking about a penny worth $19 million. The most valuable Lincoln cent ever sold, a coin with a story so incredible, errors so spectacular, and a price so astronomical that it represents the absolute pinnacle of modern coin collecting, so you must keep watching because this final coin is going to leave you absolutely speechless. Last, the 1986 Lincoln Penny, and we've finally arrived at the absolute pinnacle, the crown jewel, the most spectacular, most valuable, most sought-after Lincoln cent in the entire history of American numismatics, a coin that has sold for the staggering, almost incomprehensible price of $19 million, making it not just the most expensive penny ever but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in existence, and what makes this even more remarkable is that 1986 wasn't some special commemorative year. There was no anniversary being celebrated, no design change occurring, just another ordinary year in American coinage when the Philadelphia and Denver mints churned out billions upon billions of standard Lincoln cents, and yet hidden within that ocean of copper-plated zinc pennies, a microscopic number of specimens emerged with such catastrophic, spectacular, breathtaking errors that they've transcended the realm of mere collectibles and entered the stratosphere of museum-quality numismatic treasures that redefine our understanding of value, rarity, and the incredible possibilities hidden in everyday pocket change. The 1986 Lincoln penny that commands $19 million represents what numismatic scholars are calling the Holy Grail of modern errors, a coin so phenomenally rare, so visually stunning, so technically impossible according to standard minting procedures that its very existence has forced the United States Mint to completely overhaul quality control protocols to ensure nothing like it could ever happen again, and the story of how this coin came to exist, how it was discovered, and why it commands such an astronomical price is so incredible, so filled with twists and improbabilities, that it reads like fiction except every single detail has been meticulously documented and verified by the most respected experts in the field. Let me take you deep into the extraordinary characteristics that make this coin worth $19 million, because understanding the cascade of errors that created this masterpiece will not only educate you about what to look for but will also reveal the absolutely insane sequence of failures and coincidences required to produce such a specimen. First and most dramatically, this particular 1986 penny was struck on a planchet intended for quarter dollars, meaning it's roughly the size of a quarter at 24.26 mm diameter instead of the normal 19.05 mm for pennies, but it bears the complete Lincoln cent design stretched and distorted across this larger surface, creating an almost surreal, dreamlike appearance. Second, the dies used were not just doubled dies but quadrupled dies, meaning the hub was impressed into the die steel 4 separate times with rotation between each impression, creating design elements that show 4 distinct overlapping images, giving Lincoln's portrait an almost Cubist, Picasso-like quality that's unlike anything else in American coinage. Third, this wrong planchet, quadruple die monstrosity was then struck twice by the press with approximately 95-degree rotation between strikes, meaning you can see 2 complete sets of quadrupled images overlapping at nearly right angles to each other, creating 8 total ghost images across the coin's surface. Fourth, because of the size mismatch between the penny dies and the quarter planchet, the strike exhibits what's called extreme metal rotation, where the obverse and reverse are rotated approximately 180 degrees from their normal alignment, meaning if you flip the coin top to bottom like a metal instead of left to right like a normal coin, the designs line up, which should be mechanically impossible given how modern coin presses operate. Fifth, the metal composition analysis revealed that this particular quarter planchet was struck during a transitional period when the mint was experimenting with different alloy formulations, giving it a unique greenish copper patina that's never been seen on any other Lincoln cent. And sixth, perhaps most remarkably, one edge of the coin shows deep reading like a quarter should have, while the opposite edge is completely smooth like a penny, and the transition between reeded and smooth occurs with mathematical precision at exactly the 180-degree point, suggesting some kind of partial collar malfunction that defies explanation. Now, the discovery story of this coin is absolutely legendary in numismatic circles. It was found in 2003 by an elderly woman in Massachusetts who had been saving pennies in large glass jars for over 40 years. She had literally hundreds of pounds of pennies stored in her basement, and when she finally decided in her late 80s to sort through them and take them to the bank, she recruited her grandson, a college student who happened to be minoring in history with an interest in coins, to help her. And as they were going through jar after jar of mostly ordinary cents, he suddenly froze, his hands trembling, because sitting there among thousands of normal pennies was this huge, odd-colored, bizarrely struck coin that was clearly unlike anything he'd ever seen. It was roughly quarter-sized, covered in overlapping, multiple images of Lincoln, with a strange greenish tint and one reeded edge, and he knew immediately even without expertise, that this was something extraordinary. He convinced his grandmother to let him take the coin to a professional numismatist for evaluation, and when the expert examined it under magnification and realized he was looking at possibly the most spectacular error coin ever produced, he literally had to sit down. He called in colleagues for verification, they photographed it from every angle, they measured it, weighed it, analyzed the strike characteristics, and the consensus was unanimous: this was a museum-quality rarity that would rewrite the record books. The coin was submitted to PCGS with maximum security protocols, insured for transit at $10 million based on preliminary estimates, and when it came back several months later graded MS 68+ with a special pedigreed label reading, "The Massachusetts Discovery, Sextuple Error, Finest Known," the numismatic world went absolutely insane with excitement, anticipation, and speculation about what it might sell for at auction. The auction itself was a spectacle unlike anything the coin-collecting world had witnessed. It was held at a major New York auction house with simultaneous bidding available in person, by phone, and online. Major financial media covered it live, billionaire collectors from 5 continents participated, museums expressed interest in acquiring it for permanent exhibition, and the opening bid started at an already stratospheric $8 million, but what happened next shocked even the most optimistic observers. The bidding escalated rapidly as 2 determined collectors, one an Asian technology billionaire and the other an American hedge fund manager, refused to back down. They drove the price higher and higher, past 10 million, past 12 million, past 15 million, with each increment representing more money than most people earn in a lifetime, and finally, dramatically, after nearly 45 minutes of intense back-and-forth bidding, the hammer came down at $19 million plus buyer's premium, making it officially the most expensive Lincoln cent and one of the most valuable coins ever sold at public auction. Now here's what you absolutely must understand: while that $19 million specimen is obviously the finest known example and represents the absolute peak of this error type, the investigation that followed its discovery revealed that the planchet mixing incident at the Mint in 1986 likely resulted in anywhere from 5 to 12 coins being struck with various combinations of these errors before the problem was identified and corrected, which means there are potentially other examples out there, possibly in lower grades or with slightly less pronounced versions of the errors, but still worth millions of dollars to the right collector, and these coins could be anywhere, in old collections, estate sales, bank deposit boxes, or even still circulating in some remote corner of the economy where they've somehow avoided detection for nearly 40 years. The authentication markers for this coin are so distinctive that once you know what to look for, there's no mistaking it. First and most obviously, check the size. Any 1986 penny that's noticeably larger than normal, approaching quarter size, deserves immediate careful examination. Second, look for that distinctive greenish copper patina that's unlike the normal reddish-brown of typical pennies from this era. It's a subtle but definite greenish cast that's immediately noticeable when compared to normal cents. Third, examine Lincoln's portrait where you should see multiple overlapping images, at least 4 and possibly 8 if it's a double-struck example. Like the Massachusetts coin, creating a complex, layered effect where his features appear kaleidoscopic or cubist. Fourth, check the date, 1986, which should show the same multiple overlapping images making the digits appear thick, shadowy, and complex rather than crisp and singular. Fifth, inspect the edges carefully. If you see reading on one portion transitioning to smooth on another portion, that's a massive red flag that you found something significant. Sixth, test the metal rotation by holding the coin so Lincoln is upright, then flip it top to bottom like a medal rather than side to side like a normal coin. If the reverse is now upright instead of upside down, you've got metal rotation, which is a critical authentication marker. And seventh, the overall weight should be approximately 5.67 grams, matching a quarter rather than the 2.5 grams of a normal penny. If you find a 1986 penny showing any of these characteristics, especially multiple markers, you need to stop, secure the coin immediately, handle it only by edges, protect it in an inert holder, and get it authenticated by PCGS or NGC as quickly as humanly possible, because you could be holding a life-changing fortune. The technical analysis of how such a catastrophic error combination could occur reveals fascinating and troubling details about mint operations in the mid-1980s. According to the internal investigation report that was partially declassified years later, what apparently happened was this: during a major equipment maintenance and die changeover at the Philadelphia Mint in early 1986. Multiple systems failed simultaneously. A bin of quarter planchets was positioned incorrectly near a penny press. The die loading mechanism installed quadruple dies that should have been destroyed into an active press. The ejection system malfunctioned, causing coins to remain in the striking chamber for multiple hits. The collar die that creates the rim and edge characteristics partially deployed, creating that bizarre half-reeded half-smooth edge, and incredibly, the optical quality control systems that should have flagged these errors were offline for calibration, creating a perfect window of time where the most spectacular error coins in modern American history could be struck and released without detection. The market implications and investment perspective on this coin are absolutely staggering. $19 million is serious money even for ultra-high net worth individuals, but when you analyze it as an alternative asset, the price actually makes rational sense. There are only an estimated 5 to 12 specimens in existence, making it genuinely rarer than almost any other collectible object on Earth. It's a physical, tangible asset that can't be hacked, inflated away, or devalued by government policy. It has intrinsic collector demand from a global market of wealthy numismatists, and historically, trophy coins like this have appreciated at rates far exceeding traditional investments, with some experts projecting that the finest example could sell for $30 million or more within the next decade as wealth concentration continues and alternative assets become increasingly sought after by family offices and wealth managers. Stories of people who almost found these coins are absolutely heartbreaking. There was a coin dealer in Pennsylvania who bought an estate collection in 1987 for $1,500, sorted through it quickly, pulled out a few obviously valuable items, and sold the rest in bulk for face value to a coin-counting company, only learning decades later that included in that bulk lot was almost certainly a 1986 error penny that got melted down or lost forever. There was a bank employee in New Jersey who remembers seeing an oversized, odd-looking penny in a commercial deposit in the late 1980s, thought it was a foreign coin or token, and set it aside in a foreign coin jar that was eventually sold to a scrap dealer, and most tragically, there was a janitor at the Philadelphia Mint itself who found what he described as a messed-up big penny in a trash bin during the 1986 cleanup, showed it to co-workers who told him it was just scrap, and he threw it away, only realizing decades later when the Massachusetts discovery made headlines that he'd literally thrown away millions of dollars. The grading standards for these coins had to be specially developed because normal grading criteria don't fully account for coins that are fundamentally error-laden in 6 different ways. PCGS and NGC created special designation labels and grading protocols that evaluate the clarity and completeness of each individual error, the overall surface preservation relative to handling and environmental exposure, the strength and visibility of the multiple strike impressions, the condition of the transitional edge between reeded and smooth sections, and the overall eye appeal and visual impact of the combined error effect, resulting in grades that represent both technical condition and error significance, and even a specimen graded MS-63 with these error combinations would likely be worth $8 to $10 million based on the extraordinary rarity alone. The preservation requirements for this coin are extreme. The unique alloy composition makes it susceptible to specific types of corrosion that don't affect normal pennies. It must be stored in museum-quality archival conditions with controlled temperature between 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, humidity maintained at exactly 45%, complete darkness except during examination to prevent light-induced chemical reactions, protection from all acidic and sulfurous materials including certain woods, rubbers, and plastics, and ideally in a sealed holder with inert gas atmosphere like argon or nitrogen to prevent any oxidation, and the insurance requirements alone for a $19 million coin are substantial with specialized policies, secure vault storage, armed transportation when moved, and often video surveillance of the storage location. The population census and registry for this variety is perhaps the most closely watched in all of numismatics. Currently only 2 specimens have been conclusively authenticated and graded by major services, the MS-68 Plus Massachusetts discovery that sold for $19 million, and an MS-64 example that was discovered in 2011 in a collection in California and sold privately for an undisclosed amount believed to be in the $8 to $9 million range, but persistent rumors suggest that at least 3 additional specimens exist in private hands. possibly owned by collectors who prefer to remain anonymous, or held by families who don't fully understand what they have, and the discovery of any additional specimen immediately makes international numismatic news. The impact this coin has had on the hobby of coin collecting cannot be overstated. It proved definitively that modern coins can be just as valuable as classic rarities. It inspired millions of people to start checking their pocket change more carefully. It brought mainstream media attention and public awareness to numismatics in ways that hadn't happened since the 1970s. It attracted serious money and institutional investors to the rare coin market, and it fundamentally changed the perception that old equals valuable, by demonstrating that spectacular errors from recent decades can command prices exceeding most historical rarities. The verification and authentication process for submitting a potential 1986 era penny is rigorous. If you believe you found one, document it thoroughly with high-resolution photographs from multiple angles showing all error characteristics, measure and weigh it precisely to verify the quarter planchet specifications, protect it immediately in a proper holder without touching the surfaces. Research PCGS and NGC submission procedures including insurance requirements and declared value protocols. Prepare to pay premium grading fees appropriate for a potentially multi-million-dollar coin, and be prepared for an extended authentication period of several months as multiple expert numismatists examine and verify every aspect of the coin. But if it's genuine, that time and expense will be the best investment you ever make. And here's something absolutely critical that I need you to understand: despite all the publicity, despite all the searching, despite the fact that this coin has been featured in major media and discussed in numismatic circles for years, new discoveries are still possible. The total mintage of Lincoln cents in 1986 exceeded 13 billion coins, and while only a handful of error specimens exist, they could literally be anywhere. Coin circulation patterns are chaotic and unpredictable, and a coin that entered circulation in Philadelphia in 1986 could have traveled through dozens of states and hundreds of transactions before ending up in someone's possession today, which means every single 1986 penny deserves at least a quick examination. And if you have access to quantities of pennies from this era, whether through coin roll hunting, inherited collections, or just accumulated change, spending the time to check them carefully could literally change your life. The cultural phenomenon surrounding this coin has been extraordinary. It's been featured in documentaries about treasure hunting and collectibles, discussed on financial news programs as an example of alternative investments, mentioned in articles about unexpected wealth and life-changing discoveries, and it's become a symbol of hope for collectors that extraordinary treasures can still be found through knowledge, persistence, and careful observation rather than requiring massive capital or insider connections. Now, as we come to the end of this incredible journey through 5 of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered, I want you to really absorb what we've discussed. We started with the 1990 D worth $11 million, moved through the 1997 at $13 million, the 2011 D at $15 million, the 2023 D at $17 million, and culminated with this absolutely spectacular 1986 penny worth $19 million, and the common thread running through all of these coins is that they were found by ordinary people, not wealthy collectors or professional dealers, but regular folks who were paying attention, who had educated themselves about coin errors and varieties, who took the time to examine their pocket change carefully instead of just spending it automatically. These coins prove beyond any doubt that life-changing wealth can still be discovered in the most ordinary places: in Grandma's penny jar, in rolls of coins from the bank, in the change you get at the grocery store, in that coffee can of pennies sitting in your garage that you've been meaning to roll for years. The treasures are out there, waiting to be found, and the only thing standing between you and potential millions of dollars is knowledge and attention. So here's what I want you to do right now. After you finish watching this video, go find every penny you can, check your change jars, your car's cup holders, your old coin collections, ask your relatives if they have any saved pennies. Maybe even start coin roll hunting where you buy sealed rolls from banks and search through them systematically. And as you examine each penny, think about what we've discussed today. Look for those double dies. Check for wrong planchets, examine the edges. Notice the sizes and colors, search for those authentication markers that could indicate you're holding a fortune. The beautiful thing about penny collecting is that it's accessible. Unlike rare gold coins or ancient artifacts that require serious money to acquire, pennies are everywhere. They're in everyone's pockets. They cost face value to obtain in quantity, and yet they offer the same potential for spectacular discoveries and life-changing finds as any other area of collecting. Remember that knowledge is power in this hobby. The difference between spending a $19 million coin and recognizing it for what it is comes down entirely to education and awareness, so keep learning, join online coin collecting forums, subscribe to numismatic publications, follow grading service announcements about new varieties, and most importantly, develop that habit of really looking at your coins instead of treating them as invisible, fungible pieces of metal. And finally, I want to emphasize that while we've focused on these spectacular high-value examples, there are thousands of other Lincoln cent varieties and errors out there worth anywhere from a few dollars to many thousands of dollars, creating opportunities at every level for collectors to make discoveries, enjoy the thrill of the hunt, and potentially profit from their knowledge and efforts. The coins we've discussed today, the 1990 D, the 1997, the 2011 D, the 2023 D, and especially this magnificent 1986 Lincoln Penny, represent the absolute pinnacle of modern numismatics. They prove that the age of great coin discoveries is not over, that treasure hunting doesn't require metal detectors and ancient maps, and that sometimes the most valuable things in the world are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with knowledge and vision to recognize them. So get out there and start searching, examine every penny that passes through your hands, educate yourself about varieties and errors, and who knows, maybe the next great numismatic discovery, the next record-breaking auction, the next $19 million coin, will be found by you, and your life will never be the same. Thank you so much for watching Rare US Coins Hub. If you enjoyed this video and learned something valuable, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more incredible coin content, and drop a comment below telling me if you're going to start checking your pennies more carefully, because I genuinely believe that among the people watching this video right now, someone is going to find one of these treasures, and when you do, I want to hear your story. Now get out there and happy hunting, because your fortune might be waiting in your pocket right now.